The Seasons by James Thompson. Book 3, Autumn. Part 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Abe Neiman. Crowned with the sickle and the wheaten sheaf, while autumn nodding o'er the yellow plain comes jovial on, the Doric reed once more well pleased I tune. Whate'er the wintry frost nitrous prepared, the various blossoms spring put in white promise forth, and summer suns concocted strong rush boundless now to view, full perfect all, and swell my glorious theme. Onslow, the muse ambitious of thy name to grace inspire and dignify her song, would from the public voice thy gentle ear a while engage. Thy noble cares she knows, the patriot virtues that distend thy thought, spread on thy front and in thy bosom glow, while listening senates hang upon thy tongue, devolving through the maze of eloquence a roll of periods sweeter than her song. But she too pants for public virtue. She, though weak of power, yet strong in ardent will, whene'er her country rushes on her heart, assumes a bolder note, and fondly tries to mix the patriot's with the poet's flame. When the bright virgin gives the beauteous days, and Libra weighs in equal scales the year, from heaven's high cope the fierce effulgence shook of parting summer a serener blue, with golden light enlivened, wide invests the happy world. Attempered suns arise, sweet beamed, and shedding off through lucid clouds a pleasing calm, while broad and brown below extensive harvests hang the heavy head. Rich, silent, deep they stand, for not a gale rolls its light billows o'er the bending plain, a calm of plenty, till the ruffled air falls from its poise, and gives the breeze to blow. Rent is the fleecy mantle of the sky, the clouds fly different, and the sudden sun by fits effulgent gilds the illumined field, and black by fits the shadows sweep along. A gaily checkered heart expanding view, far as the circling eye can shoot around, unbounded tossing in a flood of corn. These are thy blessings, Industry, rough power, whom labour still attends, and sweat and pain, yet the kind source of every gentle art, and all the soft civility of life. Raiser of human kind, by nature cast, naked and helpless, out amid the woods and wilds to rude inclement elements, with various seeds of art deep in the mind implanted, and profusely poured around materials infinite, but idle all. Still unexerted in the unconscious breast slept the lethargic powers. Corruption still voracious swallowed what the liberal hand of bounty scattered o'er the savage year. And still the sad barbarian roving mixed with beasts of prey, or for his acorn meal fought the fierce tusky boar, a shivering wretch, aghast and comfortless, when the bleak north, with winter charged, let the mixed tempest fly, hail, rain, and snow, and bitter breathing frost. Then to the shelter of the hut he fled, and the wild season sordid pined away. For home he had not. Home is the resort of love, of joy, of peace and plenty, where supporting and supported polished friends and dear relations mingle into bliss. But this the rugged savage never felt, even desolate in crowds, and thus his days rolled heavy, dark, and unenjoyed along, a waste of time, till Industry approached, and roused him from his miserable sloth. His faculties unfolded, pointed out where lavish nature the directing hand of art demanded, showed him how to raise his feeble force by the mechanic powers, to dig the mineral from the vaulted earth, on what to turn the piercing rage of fire, on what the torrent and the gathered blast, gave the tall ancient forest to his axe, taught him to chip the wood and hew the stone, till by degrees the finished fabric rose, tore from his limbs the blood-polluted fur, and wrapped them in the woolly vestment warm. Or bright in glossy silk and flowing lawn, with wholesome viands filled his table, poured the generous glass around, inspired to wake the life-refining soul of decent wit, nor stopped at barren bare necessity, but still advancing bolder, led him on to pomp, to pleasure, elegance, and grace, and breathing high ambition through his soul, set science, wisdom, glory in his view, and bade him be the lord of all below. Then gathering men their natural powers combined, and formed a public, to the general good submitting, aiming and conducting all. For this the Patriot Council met, the full, the free, and fairly represented whole. For this they planned the holy guardian laws, distinguished orders, animated arts, and with joint force oppression chaining, set imperial justice at the helm, yet still to them accountable. Nor slavish dream that toiling millions must resign their weal, and all the honey of their search, to such as for themselves alone they have raised. Hence every form of cultivated life, in order set, protected, and inspired, into perfection wrought. Uniting all, society grew numerous, high, polite, and happy. Nurse of art, the city reared in beauteous pride her tower-encircled head, and stretching street on street by thousands drew from twining woody haunts, or the tough yew to boughs strong straining her aspiring sons. Then commerce brought into the public walk the busy merchant, the big warehouse built, raised the strong crane, choked up the loaded street with foreign plenty. And thy stream, O Thames, large, gentle, deep, majestic, king of floods, chose for his grand resort. In either hand, like a long wintry forest, groves of masts shot up their spires. The bellying sheet between possessed the breezy void. The sooty hulk steered sluggish on. The splendid barge along rode, regular to harmony. Around the boat light skimming stretched its oary wings, while deep the various voice of fervent toil from bank to bank increased, whence ribbed with oak, to bear the British thunder, black and bold, the roaring vessel rushed into the main. Then too the pillared dome magnific heaved its ample roof, and luxury within poured out her glittering stores. The canvas smooth with glowing life protuberant to the view embodied rose. The statue seemed to breathe and soften into flesh. Beneath the touch of forming art, imagination flushed. All is the gift of industry. Whate'er exalts, embellishes, and renders life delightful. Pensive winter, cheered by him, sits at the social fire, and happy hears the excluded tempest idly rave along. His hardened fingers deck the gaudy spring. Without him, summer were an arid waste, nor to the autumnal months could thus transmit those full, mature, immeasurable stores, that waving round, recall my wandering song. Soon as the morning trembles o'er the sky, and unperceived unfolds the spreading day, before the ripened field the reapers stand in fair array. each by the lass he loves, to bear the rougher part, and mitigate by nameless gentle offices her toil. At once they stoop and swell the lusty sheaves, while through their cheerful band the rural talk, the rural scandal, and the rural jest fly harmless, to deceive the tedious time, and steal unfelt the sultry hours away. Behind, the master walks, builds up the shocks, and conscious, glancing oft on every side his sated eye, feels his heart heave with joy. The gleaners spread around, and here and there, spike after spike, their scanty harvest pick. Be not too narrow, husbandmen, but fling from the full sheaf with charitable stealth the liberal handful. Think, O grateful, think, how good the God of harvest is to you, who pours abundance over your flowing fields, while these unhappy partners of your kind wide hover round you, like the fowls of heaven, and ask their humble dole. The various turns of fortune ponder, that your sons may want what now, with hard reluctance faint, ye give. The lovely young Lavinia once had friends, and fortune smiled deceitful on her birth. For in her helpless years deprived of all, of every stay save innocence and heaven, she with her widowed mother, feeble, old, and poor, lived in a cottage far retired among the windings of a woody vale, by solitude and deep surrounding shades, but more by bashful modesty concealed. Together thus they shun the cruel scorn which virtue, sunk to poverty, would meet from giddy passion and low-minded pride. Almost on nature's common bounty fed, like the gay birds that sung them to repose, content and careless of tomorrow's fare. Her form was fresher than the morning rose, when the dew wets its leaves, unstained and pure, as is the lily or the mountain snow. The modest virtues mingled in her eyes, still on the ground dejected, darting all their humid beams into the blooming flowers. Or when the mournful tale her mother told, of what her faithless fortune promised once, thrilled in her thought, they, like the dewy star of evening, shone in tears. A native grace sat fair proportioned on her polished limbs, veiled in a simple robe, their best attire, beyond the pomp of dress. For loveliness needs not the foreign aid of ornament, but is when unadorned, adorned the most. Thoughtless of beauty, she was beauty's self, recluse amid the close embowering woods. As in the hollow breast of Apennine, beneath the shelter of encircling hills, a myrtle rises, far from human eye, and breathes its balmy fragrance o'er the wild; so flourished blooming, and unseen by all, the sweet Lavinia, till at length, compelled by strong necessity's supreme command, with smiling patience in her looks, she went to glean Palaemon's fields. The pride of swains Palamon was, the generous and the rich, who led the rural life in all its joy and elegance, such as Arcadian song transmits from ancient uncorrupted times, when tyrant custom had not shackled man, but free to follow nature was the mode. He then, his fancy with autumnal scenes amusing, chanced beside his reaper train to walk, when poor Lavinia drew his eye, unconscious of her power, and turning quick with unaffected blushes from his gaze. He saw her charming, but he saw not half the charms her downcast modesty concealed. That very moment love and chaste desire sprung in his bosom, to himself unknown, for still the world prevailed, and its dread laugh, which scarce the firm philosopher can scorn, should his heart own a gleaner in the field. And thus in secret to his soul he sighed, "What pity, that so delicate a form, by beauty kindled, where enlivened sense and more than vulgar goodness seem to dwell, should be devoted to the rude embrace of some indecent clown. She looks, methink, of old Acasto's line, and to my mind recalls that patron of my happy life, from whom my liberal fortune took its rise. Now to the dust gone down, his houses, lands, and once fair spreading family dissolved. 'Tis said that in some lone obscure retreat, urged by remembrance sad and decent pride, far from those scenes which knew their better days, his aged widow and his daughter live, whom yet my fruitless search could never find. Romantic wish! Would this the daughter were! When, strict inquiring, from herself he found she was the same, the daughter of his friend, of bountiful Acasto, who can speak the mingled passions that surprised his heart, and through his nerves in shivering transport ran? Then blazed his smothered flame, avowed and bold, and as he viewed her, ardent o'er and o'er, love, gratitude, and pity wept at once. Confused and frightened at his sudden tears, her rising beauties flushed a higher bloom, as thus Palamon, passionate and just, poured out the pious rapture of his soul. And art thou then Acasto's dear remains? She whom my restless gratitude has sought so long in vain? Oh, heavens! The very same, the softened image of my noble friend, alive in his every look, his every feature, more elegantly touched, sweeter than spring. Thou sole surviving blossom from the root that nourished up my fortune, say, where, in what sequestered desert hast thou drawn the kindest aspect of delighted heaven? Into such beauty spread, and blown so fair, though poverty's cold wind and crushing rain beat keen and heavy on thy tender years. Oh, let me now into a richer soil transplant thee safe, where vernal suns and showers diffuse their warmest, largest influence, and of my garden be the pride and joy. Ill it befits thee, it ill befits Acasto's daughter, his whose open stores, though vast, were little to his ampler heart, the father of a country, thus depict the very refuse of those harvest fields, which from his bounteous friendship I enjoy. Then throw that shameful pittance from thy hand, but ill applied to such a rugged task. The fields, the master, all, my fair, are thine. If to the various blessings which thy house has on me lavished, thou wilt add that bliss, that dearest bliss, the power of blessing thee. Here ceased the youth, yet still his speaking eye expressed the sacred triumph of his soul, with conscious virtue, gratitude, and love, above the vulgar joy divinely raised. Nor waited he reply. Won by the charm of goodness irresistible, and all in sweet disorder lost, she blush'd consent. The news immediate to her mother brought, while pierced with anxious thought, she pined away the lonely moments for Lavinia's fate. Amazed, and scarce believing what she heard, joy seized her withered veins, and one bright gleam of setting life shone on her evening hours. Not less enraptured than the happy pair, who flourished long in tender bliss, and reared a numerous offspring, lovely like themselves, and good the grace of all the country round. Defeating oft the labours of the year, the sultry south collects a potent blast. At first the groves are scarcely seen to stir their trembling tops, and the still murmur runs along the soft inclining fields of corn. But as the aerial tempest fuller swells, and in one mighty stream, invisible, immense, the whole excited atmosphere impetuous rushes o'er the sounding world. Strained to the root, the stooping forest pours a rustling shower of yet untimely leaves. high beat the circling mountains eddy in from the bare wild the dissipated storm, and send it in a torrent down the vale. Exposed and naked to its utmost rage, through all the sea of harvest rolling round, the billowy plain floats wide, nor can evade, though pliant to the blast, its seizing force, or whirled in air, or into vacant chaff sook waste. And sometimes, too, a burst of rain, swept from the black horizon broad, descends in one continuous flood. Still overhead the mingling tempest weaves its gloom, and still the deluge deepens, till the fields around lie sunk and flatted in the sordid wave. Sudden the ditches swell, the meadows swim, red from the hills innumerable streams tumultuous roar, and high above its banks the river lift, before whose rushing tide herds, flocks, and harvests, cottages and swains roll mingled down. All that the winds had spared, in one wild moment ruined, the big hopes and well-earned treasures of the painful year. Fled to some eminence, the husbandman helpless beholds the miserable wreck driving along. His drowning ox at once descending, with his labours scattered round, he sees. An instant o'er his shivering thought comes winter unprovided, and a train of clamant children dear. Ye masters then, be mindful of the rough laborious hand that sinks you soft in elegance and ease. Be mindful of those limbs in russet clad, whose toil to yours is warmth and graceful pride. And oh, be mindful of that sparing board, which covers yours with luxury profuse, makes your glass sparkle, and your sense rejoice. Nor cruelly demand what the deep rains and all involving winds have swept away. Hear the rude clamour of the sportsman's joy, the gun fast thundering, and the winded horn, would tempt the muse to sing the rural game. How in his mid-career the spaniel struck, stiff by the tainted gale, with open nose outstretched and finely sensible, draws full, fearful, and cautious on the latent prey. As in the sun the circling covey bask their varied plumes, and watchful every way through the rough stubble turn the secret eye. Caught in the meshy snare, in vain they beat their idle wings, entangled more and more. Nor on the surges of the boundless air, though borne triumphant, are they safe. The gun glance just and sudden from the fowler's eye o'ertakes their sounding pinions, and again immediate brings them from the towering wing dead to the ground, or drives them wide dispersed, wounded, and wheeling various down the wind. These are not subjects for the peaceful muse, nor will she stain with such her spotless song. Then most delighted, when she social sees the whole mixed animal creation round, alive and happy. 'Tis not joy to her, this falsely cheerful barbarous game of death, this rage of pleasure, which the restless youth awakes, impatient with the gleaming morn. When beasts of prey retire, that all night long, urged by necessity, had ranged the dark, as if their conscious ravage shunned the light, ashamed. Not so the steady tyrant man, who with the thoughtless insolence of power inflamed, beyond the most infuriate wrath of the worst monster that e'er roamed the waste, for sport alone pursues the cruel chase amid the beamings of the gentle days. Upbraid, ye ravening tribes, our wanton rage, for hunger kindles you, and lawless want. But lavish fed, in nature's bounty rolled, to joy at anguish and delight in blood, is what your horrid bosoms never knew. Poor is the triumph o'er the timid hare, scared from the corn, and now to some lone seat retired. The rushy fen, the ragged furze stretched o'er the stony heath, the stubble chapped, the thistly lawn, the thick entangled broom, of the same friendly hue, the withered fern, the fallow ground laid open to the sun, concoctive, and the nodding sandy bank hung o'er the mazes of the mountain brook. Vain is her best precaution, though she sits concealed with folded ears, unsleeping eyes, by nature raised to take the horizon in, and head couched close betwixt her hairy feet, in act to spring away. The scented dew betrays her early labyrinth, and deep in scattered sullen openings far behind, with every breeze she hears the coming storm. But nearer and more frequent as it loads the sighing gale, she springs amazed, and all the savage soul of game is up at once. The pack full opening, various, the shrill horn resounded from the hills, the neighing steed wild for the chase, and the loud hunter's shout, o'er a weak, harmless, flying creature, all mixed in mad tumult and discordant joy. The stag, too, singled from the herd, where long he ranged the branching monarch of the shades, before the tempest drives. At first in speed he sprightly puts his faith, and roused by fear gives all his swift aerial soul to flight. Against the breeze he darts, that way the more to leave the lessening murderous cry behind. Deception short! Though fleeter than the winds blown o'er the keen-aired mountain by the north, he bursts the thickets, glances through the glades, and plunges deep into the wildest wood. If slow, yet sure, adhesive to the track hot steaming, up behind him come again the inhuman rout, and from the shady depth expel him. Circling through his every shift, he sweeps the forest oft, and sobbing sees the glades, mild opening to the golden day, where in kind contests with his budding friends he wont to struggle for his loves enjoy. Oft in the full descending flood he tries to lose the scent, and lave his burning sides. Oft seeks the herd, the watchful herd, alarmed with selfish care, avoid a brother's woe. What shall he do? His once so vivid nerves, so full of buoyant spirit, now no more inspire the course, but fainting, breathless toil, sick, seizes on his heart. He stands at bay, and puts his last weak refuge in despair. The big round tears run down his dappled face. He groans in anguish, while the growling pack, blood happy, hang at his fair jutting chest, and mark his beauteous checkered sides with gore. Of this enough. But if the sylvan youth, whose fervent blood boils into violence, must have the chase, behold, despising flight, the roused up lion, resolute and slow advancing full on the pretended spear, and coward band that circling wheel aloof. Slunk from the cavern and the troubled wood, see the grim wolf. On him his shaggy foe vindictive fix, and let the ruffian die. Or growling horrid as the brindled boar grins fell destruction, to the monster's heart let the dart lighten from the nervous arm. These Britain knows not. Give ye Britons then your sportive fury, pitiless, to pour loose on the nightly robber of the fold. Him from his craggy winding haunts on earth let all the thunder of the chase pursue. Throw the broad ditch behind you, o'er the hedge high bound resistless, nor the deep morass refuse, but through the shaking wilderness pick your nice way into the perilous flood, bear fearless of the raging instinct full. And as you ride the torrent, to the banks your triumph sounds sonorous, running round from rock to rock in circling echoes tossed. then scale the mountains to their woody tops, rush down the dangerous steep, and o'er the lawn, in fancy swallowing up the space between, pour all your speed into the rapid game. For happy he, who tops the wheeling chase, has every maze evolved, and every guile disclosed; who knows the merits of the pack, who saw the villain seized, and dying hard without complaint, though by 100 mouths relentless torn. O glorious he, beyond his daring peers, when the retreating horn calls them to ghostly halls of grey renown, with woodland honours graced. The fox's fur depending descent from the roof, and spread round the drear walls, with antic figures fierce the stag's large front. He then is loudest heard, when the knight staggers with severer toils, with feats Thessalian centaurs never knew, and their repeated wonders shake the dome. But first the fueled chimney blazes wide, the tankards foam, and the strong table groans beneath the smoking sirloin, stretched immense from side to side, in which with desperate knife they deep incision make, and talk the while of England's glory, ne'er to be defaced, while hence they borrow vigour; or amain into the pasty plunged at intervals, if stomach keen can intervals allow, relating all the glories of the chase. Then sated hunger bids his brother thirst produce the mighty bowl. The mighty bowl, swelled high with fiery juice, steams liberal round a potent gale, delicious as the bread of Maia to the love-sick shepherdess on violets diffused, while soft she hears her panting shepherd stealing to her arms. Nor wanting is the brown October, drawn mature and perfect from his dark retreat of 30 years. And now his honest front flames in the light refulgent, not afraid even with the vineyard's best produce to vie. To cheat the thirsty moments, whist awhile walks his dull round beneath a cloud of smoke, wreathed fragrant from the pipe; or the quick dice, in thunder leaping from the box, awake the sounding gammon, while romp-loving miss is hauled about in gallantry robust. At last these puling idlenesses laid aside, frequent and full, the dry divan close in firm circle, and set ardent in for serious drinking. Nor evasion sly, nor sober shift, is to the puking wretch indulged apart; but earnest brimming bowls lave every soul, the table floating round, and pavement faithless to the fuddled foot. Thus as they swim in mutual swill, the talk, vociferous at once from 20 tongues, reels fast from theme to theme, from horses, hounds, to church or mistress, politics or ghost, in endless mazes, intricate, perplexed. Meantime, with sudden interruption loud, the impatient catch bursts from the joyous heart. That moment touched is every kindred soul, and opening in a full-mouthed cry of joy, the laugh, the slap, the jocund curse go round; while from their slumbers shook, the kennelled hounds mix in the music of the day again. As when the tempest that has vexed the deep the dark night long, with fainter murmurs falls, so gradual sinks their mirth. Their feeble tongues, unable to take up the cumbrous word, lie quite dissolved. Before their maudlin eyes, seen dim and blue, the double tapers dance, like the sun wading through the misty sky. Then sliding soft they drop, confused above glasses and bottles, pipes and gazetteers, as if the table even itself was drunk, lie in a wet broken scene, and wide below is heaped the social slaughter, where astride the lubber Power in filthy triumph sits, slumberous, inclining still from side to side, and steeps them drenched in potent sleep till morn. Perhaps some doctor of tremendous paunch awful and deep, a black abyss of drink outlives them all, and from his buried flock retiring, full of rumination sad, laments the weakness of these latter times. But if the rougher sex by this fierce sport is hurried wild, let not such horrid joy e'er stain the bosom of the British fair. Far be the spirit of the chase from them! Uncomely courage, unbeseeming skill, to spring the fence, to rein the prancing steed, the cap, the whip, the masculine attire, in which they roughen to the sense, and all the winning softness of their sex is lost. In them 'tis graceful to dissolve at woe, with every motion, every word, to wave quick o'er the kindling cheek the ready blush, and from the smallest violence to shrink unequal. Then the loveliest in their fears, and by this silent adulation soft, to their protection more engaging man. Oh, may their eyes no miserable sight Save weeping lovers see, a nobler game, Through love's enchanting wiles pursued, yet fled in chase ambiguous. May their tender limbs float in a loose simplicity of dress, and fashioned all to harmony, alone know they to seize the captivated soul, in rapture warbled from the love-breathing lips, to teach the lute to languish, with smooth step disclosing motion in its every charm, to swim along and swell the mazy dance, to train the foliage o'er the snowy lawn, to guide the pencil, turn the tuneful page, to lend new flavor to the fruitful year, and heighten nature's dainties. In their race to rear their graces into second life, to give society its highest taste, well-ordered home man's best delight to make, and by submissive wisdom, modest skill, with every gentle care eluding art, to raise the virtues, animate the bliss, and sweeten all the toils of human life. This be the female dignity and praise. Ye swains, now hasten to the hazel bank, where down yon dale the wildly winding brook falls hoarse from steep to steep. In close array, fit for the thickets and the tangling shrub, ye virgins come. For you their latest song the woodlands raise. The clustering nuts for you the lover finds amid the secret shade. And where they burnish on the topmost bough, with active vigour crushes down the tree, or shakes them ripe from the resigning husk, a glossy shower, and of the ardent brown, as are the ringlets of Melinda's hair. Melinda, form'd with every grace complete, yet these neglecting, above beauty wise, and far transcending such a vulgar praise. Hence from the busy joy resounding fields, in cheerful error let us tread the maze Of autumn unconfined, and taste revive The breath of orchard big with bending fruit. Obedient to the breeze and beating ray, From the deep-loaded bough a mellow shower Incessant melts away. The juicy pear lies in a soft profusion scattered round. A various sweetness swells the gentle race, By Nature's all refining hand prepared, Of tempered sun and water, earth and air, In ever changing composition mixed. Such falling frequent through the chiller night, The fragrant stores, the wide projected heaps Of apples, which the lusty handed year Innumerous o'er the blushing orchard shakes. A various spirit, fresh, delicious, keen, Dwells in their gelid pores, and active points The piercing cider for the thirsty tongue. Thy native theme, and boon inspirer too, Philips, Pomona's bard, the second thou Who nobly durst, in rhyme unfettered verse, With British freedom sing the British song. How from Silurian vats high sparkling wines Foam in transparent floods, some strong To cheer the wintry revels of the labouring hind, And tasteful some, to cool the summer hours. In this glad season, while his sweetest beams the sun sheds equal o'er the meekened day, lose me in the green delightful walks Of Doddington, thy seat serene and plain, Where simple nature reigns, and every view Diffusive spreads the pure Dorsetian downs In boundless prospect, yonder shagg'd with wood, Here rich with harvest, and there white with flocks. Meantime the grandeur of thy lofty dome Far splendid seizes on the ravish'd eye. New beauties rise with each revolving day, New columns swell, and still the fresh spring Finds new plants to quicken, and new groves to green. Full of thy genius all, the Muses' seat, Where in the secret bower and winding walk For virtuous young and thee they twine the bay. Here wandering oft, fir'd with the restless thirsts Of thy applause, I solitary court th' inspiring breeze, And meditate the book of Nature ever open, Aiming thence, warm from the heart, to learn the moral song. Here as I steal along the sunny wall, Where autumn basks with fruit empurpled deep, My pleasing theme continual prompts my thought, Presents the downy peach, the shining plum, The ruddy fragrant nectarine, and dark Beneath his ample leaf the luscious fig. The vine too here her curling tendrils shoots, Hangs out her clusters glowing to the south, And scarcely wishes for a warmer sky. Turn we a moment Fancy's rapid flight To vigorous soils, and climes of fair extent, Where by the potent sun elated high, The vineyard swells refulgent on the day, Spreads o'er the vale, and up the mountain climbs Profuse, and drinks amid the sunny rocks, From cliff to cliff increased, the heightened blaze. Low bend the weighty boughs, the clusters clear Half thro' the foliage seen, or ardent flame, Or shine transparent, while perfection breathes White over the turgent film, the living dew. As thus they brighten with exalted juice, Touch'd into flavour by the mingling ray, The rural youth and virgins o'er the field, Each fond for each to cull th' autumnal prime, Exulting rove, and speak the vintage nigh. Then comes the crushing swain. The country floats, and foams unbounded With the mashy flood, that by degrees Fermented and refined, round the raised nations pours the cup of joy. The claret smooth, red as the lip we press In sparkling fancy, while we drain the bowl. The mellow tasted Burgundy, and quick as is the wit it gives, the gay champagne. Now by the cool declining year condensed, Descend the copious exhalations. Check'd as up the middle sky unseen they stole, And roll the doubling fogs around the hill. No more the mountain, horrid, vast, sublime, Who pours a sweep of rivers from his sides, And high between contending kingdoms rears The rocky long division, fills the view With great variety, but in a night Of gathering vapour, from the baffled sense Sinks dark and dreary. Thence expanding far, The huge dusk, gradual, swallows up the plain. Vanish the woods, the dim seen river seems Sullen and slow to roll the misty wave. Even in the height of noon oppressed, The sun sheds weak and blunt his wide refracted ray, Whence glaring oft, with many a broadened orb, He frights the nation. Indistinct on earth, Seen thro' the turbid air, beyond the life Objects appear ; and wilder'd o'er the waste The shepherd stalks gigantic, till at last, Wreathed dun around, in deeper circles still Successive closing, sits the general fog Unbounded o'er the world, and mingling thick A formless grey confusion covers all. As when of old, so sung the Hebrew bard, Light, uncollected, thro' the chaos urg'd Its infant way, nor order yet had drawn His lovely train from out the dubious gloom. These roving mists that constant now begin to smoke along the hilly country. These with weighty rains and melted alpine snows the mountain's cisterns fill. Those ample stores of water scooped among the hollow rocks, whence gush the streams, the ceaseless fountains play, and their unfailing wealth the rivers draw. Some sages say that where the numerous wave forever lashes the resounding shore, drilled through the sandy stratum every way, the waters with the sandy stratum rise. Amid those angles infinitely strained, they joyful leave their jaggy salts behind, and clear and sweeten as they soak along. Nor stops the restless fluid, mounting still, though oft amidst the irriguous vale it springs, but to the mountain courted by the sand, that leads it darkling on in faithful maze, far from the parent main it boils again fresh into day, and all the glittering hill is bright with spouting rills. But hence this vain amusive dream. Why should the waters love to take so far a journey to the hills, when the sweet valleys offer to their toil inviting quiet, and a nearer bed? Or if by blind ambition led astray they must aspire, why should they sudden stop amongst the broken mountain's rushy dells, and, ere they gain its highest peak, desert the attractive sand that charmed their course so long? Besides, the hard agglomerating salts, the spoil of ages, would impervious choke their secret channels. Or by slow degrees, high as the hills protrude the swelling vales, old ocean too, sucked through the porous globe, had long ere now forsook his horrid bed, and brought Deucalion's watery times again. Say then, where lurk the vast eternal springs, that like creating nature lie concealed from mortal eye, yet with their lavish stores refresh the globe, and all its joyous tribes? O thou pervading genius, given to man to trace the secrets of the dark abyss! O lay the mountains bare, and wide display their hidden structure to the astonished view. Strip from the branching Alps their piny load, the huge encumbrance of horrific woods from Asian Taurus and Imaus stretched athwart the roving Tartars' sullen bounds. Give opening Hemus to my searching eye, and high Olympus pouring many a stream. Oh, from the sounding summits of the north, the Dofrine hills, through Scandinavia rolled to farthest Lapland and frozen main, from lofty Caucasus far seen by those who in the Caspian and black Euxine soil, from cold Riphean rocks, which the wild Russ believes the stony girdle of the world, and all the dreadful mountains wrapped in storm, whence wide Siberia draws her lonely floods. Oh, sweep the eternal snows, hung o'er the deep that ever works beneath his sounding base. Bid Atlas, propping heaven, as poets fiend his subterranean wonders spread, unveil the miny caverns blazing on the day, of Abyssinia's cloud compelling cliffs, and of the bending mountains of the moon. O'ertopping all these giant sons of earth, let the dire Andes from the radiant line stretch to the stormy seas that thunder round the southern pole their hideous deeps unfold. Amazing scene! Behold, the glooms disclose. I see the rivers in their infant beds. Deep, deep I hear them laboring to get free. I see the leaning strata artful ranged, the gaping fissures to receive the rains, the melting snows and ever dripping fogs. Strode bibulous above I see the sands, the pebbly gravel next, the layers then of mingled moulds, of more retentive earths, the guttered rocks and mazy running clefts, that while stealing moisture they transmit, retard its motion, and forbid its waste. Beneath the incessant weeping of these drains, I see the rocky siphons stretched immense, the mighty reservoirs of hardened chalk, or stiff compacted clay, capacious form'd. O'erflowing thence the congregated stores, the crystal treasures of the liquid world, thro' the stirred sands a bubbling passage burst, and welling out around the middle steep, or from the bottoms of the bosom'd hills, in pure effusion flow. United thus, the exhaling sun, the vapor burdened air, the gelid mountains, that to rain condens'd these vapors in continual current draw, and send them o'er the fair divided earth, in bounteous rivers to the deep again, a social commerce hold, and firm support the full adjusted harmony of things. End of The Seasons, Book 3, Autumn, Part 1. This recording is in the public domain.